Hey Gary, how are you today?
I am fantastic. How are you?
Awesome, doing well. So, for those of you who are watching this and you don't know who Gary is, get ready because you're going to hear all sorts of great things about him. Gary Wilson is the founder of Grow Love Not Lawns, and he's taking a few minutes out of his day to tell us about what he's up to. So, Gary, tell us a little bit about Grow Love Not Lawns.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, obviously, first of all. Grow Love Not Lawns came out of a necessity, really. My wife and I are both plant-based, and as probably many of you know, Jess from Evolve Meals, she's a plant-based personal chef we all love, especially me. And during COVID, honestly, it was just kind of difficult to go to the store and find fresh produce because they kind of took that away from us. So it sort of made us take a step back and realize, okay, where, if anything ever were to happen, where are we getting our food from in the future? So there was a little bit of food security, food sovereignty that came into play. And we just started talking about options, honestly, and how we can ensure that we have food going forward, and how to offer food to others in cases, who knows what's going to happen in the future. So just to have that food security, and neither one of us had ever planted a seed in our lives. So this was all brand new to us. And I mean, it literally started 3.5 years ago during COVID, where just you can't see it, but over here on the side of the house, we started a little raised garden bed area in the middle of June, the worst time to start in North Texas. It was 105 degrees outside, but it was extremely exciting. I mean, we were both just into it. And it gave us something to do, honestly, during COVID. So we planted, there was only a few things you can plant in mid-June in North Dallas to even have a hope of it growing. And one of those was melons, specifically cantaloupe. So we built these raised beds. I did a little bit of a dive into YouTube to figure out how to build all this stuff. Built some raised beds, made it super pretty over there, and made a little arch. And the cantaloupe did well, even though it's not in a great area. It doesn't get enough sun, honestly, throughout the day, but it worked. And watching that little seedling grow from something this big to it literally covered this entire arch, and had all these beautiful yellow flowers on it. And then those flowers, you see all the bees and the pollinators come in and do their job, and and then see the fruit start growing. It's pretty amazing for someone that's never done it. And even now, it's been 3.5 years. I'm still amazed. The stuff behind me, is, I mean, it's tremendous what we have gone from to where we are now. But to see that fruit actually develop and be able to harvest it and then taste it, tasting it is what really changed it for us. I was never a big cantaloupe fan, to be honest. But when we cut into that thing and I took my first bite, I was sold. That was the first, my adult life, first homegrown anything I'd ever tasted. And it was a game changer. It had flavor, and it was the flavor it was supposed to have. It was allowed to ripen on the vine. Um, and it was still alive when we ate it. And that sounds kind of morbid, but kind of what I'm saying there. Um, but it wasn't picked early, shipped across the country on a truck, sitting in a warehouse for weeks to the grocery store. It was literally harvested and eaten within 5 minutes. So I just fell in love, honestly, and we decided to expand that winter into the front yard. I had to convince Jess a little bit because we are in North Dallas. We're not rural Texas, and we're on a busy corner in North Dallas. So we were a little concerned with what the neighbors would think of putting this giant garden in the front. But honestly, that's back when people were walking every single day in the neighborhoods because COVID was still going on. So we met more neighbors in those 3 months than we had in the 6 years we had been here prior. And the reception was overwhelmingly positive. People just loved it. So that made it even more energizing for me to want to do more. And then just getting the harvest. We grew cauliflower and broccoli and chard and kale and Brussels sprouts, and I mean, you name it, cabbage that fall and winter. And it was just amazing to be able to see, because at that time I started planting seeds. So to actually learn how a seed develops into this gigantic plant that just keeps giving and giving as long as you take care of it, it was phenomenal. So I fell in love with gardening. I did the deep dive into where our food comes from, how far it's shipped across the country before it gets to us, and just thought that was pretty ridiculous that, when we've got all this land that is literally being taken up by turf grass, which is just one of the worst things you can have in your yard.
Oh yeah, you don't want
So
a
why not?
monoculture. Yeah, you definitely don't
Yeah,
want a monoculture. And what I'm learning now, Gary, and I sort of I didn't know this. I mean, I kind of had an idea, but for some reason, I thought this was I mean, I know that's not your background. Your background is nothing about gardening and all that. I didn't
nope,
realize it was such a new development for you. And I think that's what's most inspiring because a lot of times when you see people like farmers and gardeners, it goes back generations. They're like,
yep,
my grandfather was doing this, my great great grandfather was doing this, or even my mom was doing this, so I picked
sure,
up from her. Learning that you and Jess started this 3.5 years ago, and I'm just looking at the background. You've got all sorts of delicious things growing behind you.
for
I
sure.
love that you're educating people on how you can do this. You don't need acres and acres of land in
Nope,
order to be able to grow some of your food. And another issue with our produce is the things that are used on it, like the
yep,
pesticides, the chemicals. And I know you and Jess have been avid Turn customers since the get-go. Like, thank you so much for being Turn customers. I think you're probably one of our very first commercial accounts. So thank you for that.
of
And
course.
man, it's obvious. Like you and just live a life in which it is a circular thing. It's like you plant the seeds, you serve the food, whatever is wasted, you compost, and then you take the compost and put it like to know that you are both doing this in North Dallas on I think less than half an acre. I mean,
Oh yeah,
definitely less than
yep,
half an acre.
yep.
And you're able to feed people with like this delicious abundance of fresh produce is amazing. So, which takes me to my next question. If someone doesn't know where to start, and obviously Grow Love Not Lawns is there. You guys are there to help everybody figure out where to start, what seeds to work with, what grows well, and what are we in zone 8B in North
8A.
Texas? 8A, zone
Mm,
8A. And then what you've done all the trial and error, so you're not going to have someone waste money by figuring out,
mm.
the wrong things. You're not
I've
going to
wasted enough for all of us. Yeah.
Exactly. So I know you are there to help people, but if they're not quite ready to sign on with Grow Love Not Lawns, or is there a way they could just do like a quick discovery call, like 15 or 20 minutes to find out if it is? Because how do you know it's not for you if you don't know anything about it, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
how can people find out about how to get going with y'all or what services are provided and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So website obviously is easygrowlovenotLawns.com. There's a button at the bottom to get in touch with us. You can shoot me an email, and I'm more than happy just to have anyone come over and see the garden. That's why I have it out front is for that purpose. And we've got different modalities. We've got raised beds, we've got in ground, we've got these metal beds. So there's a little bit for everyone, but reach out there. Instagram, I'm not a huge social media guy, but it's there. Same thing, Grow Love Not Lawns on Instagram. Send me a message. I'm happy to give any information that I know. I'm happy to pass that along because I just want everyone, anyone that wants to do this can, because I'm living proof of that. But I would love to see nothing but gardens in people's yards as opposed to this turf grass. I mean, why not? Even if it's just a few little, I mean, chard. You can. It's almost hard to kill chard. So and it's so good for you. But there's so many things we can grow. Throw some sunflower seeds out there. It's so easy. But reach out. I'm happy to help any way I can. So you don't have to go this crazy like I did. But if you want to, that's fantastic. Also,
That's why you're there. And you have gone through not just the trial and error, but you've also faced some challenges with some municipality. And since you've gone through that, you kind of, I mean, not kind of, but you know how to help someone weave their way and through those crazy mazes of
yeah,
bureaucracy. So
yep,
that's also knowledge that Gary has. And for those who don't know your background, just like a quick 10-second recap of what your background was. You were in technology and math, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would say that, but yes, home electronics. Basically, for the last 25 years, I've had a residential electronics business, installing, Wi-Fi networks and cameras and TVs and sound systems for people. The exact opposite of working in a garden, but there's nothing better than playing in the dirt. I mean, that's what it equals out to me, is just getting out there, getting your hands dirty and playing in the dirt. It's fantastic therapy.
And there's so many benefits to that. And what you were saying about the lawns, if you're going to rate, if you're going to have some sort of monoculture in a beautiful green lawn, why not use that water that you would use to water that lawn to grow some food? And if you
Yep.
feel weird about growing your own food, plant some sunflower seeds, like Gary was saying, and help the pollinators, because the pollinators need all the help they can get. And,
Right.
when you plant things of that nature, it helps prevent erosion. It helps so many things. And there are studies out there that show the benefits to our mental health when we're out
Mhm.
there working in the sun, working in the dirt. Not to say you have to give up your career to do this, but just a few hours a week in the lawn is so beneficial. So reach out to Gary.
100%.
I mean, yeah, he can help
100%.
you figure all of this out. And believe me, he and Jess, and they have done a ton of work, and they are encyclopedic in their knowledge that they've acquired through this trial and error process. So, Gary, is there anything else you would share with people who are watching? Just like words of encouragement, or, like first steps, maybe pick up a catalog online and just look at some seeds and get familiar with the things that we can grow. I mean, what would you tell the newbie who's very, very much interested in this sort of thing?
Yeah, start small. Honestly, it was a little overwhelming for me at first because I went too big. So start small. Grab a tomato plant. They make patio style tomato plants that don't go crazy, but when you taste that homegrown tomato and that sweetness and the flavor it's supposed to have, it'll change your outlook on food and what it's supposed to do for you and how it's supposed to taste. And that little seed will grow into whatever you want it to be, whether it's just a single raised bed or, going crazy with the food forest, whatever you want to do. But start small, just do something, plant a little pocket prairie of native flowers. That's really, we need more of that than anything else. But just, not to steal a line from Nike, but just do it. It's that simple.
Yeah, because it is rewarding once you see that growth. It's like, oh my gosh. I mean, the first time I nurtured one tiny sunflower seed into like this massive, because I am growing during the season, mammoth sunflower. If
Oh
those of
yeah.
you who don't know what that is, it's like
Huge.
the sunflower head is the size of our faces, basically. And they're fantastic for the bees. And I remember when I visited your garden, was like sunflower heaven, and you saw all the bees just pollinating all the plants in your yard. So listen to Gary with Grow Love Not Lawns. You can start with something as small as a tomato plant. I mean, start with a basil plant, something, but
Right.
just allow yourself to experience that success with that growing of food, and from there it can just take off. And there's nothing, like he said, there's nothing like biting into something and knowing that you know exactly where it started, you know what medium it's growing in, you know how fresh it is, and you know it didn't travel from another country or from across our country to get to your plate, and you know it wasn't encased in plastic, because that's another topic that we
Yep.
could go
Yeah.
overboard with. But Gary, thank you for what you're doing. My goodness, I have been the recipient of many of your harvests, and it's just fantastic. For those who don't know, Gary is 200 and I'm 175. So look at what fresh food does for your face and skin. You'll live forever.
That's exactly right. All
Thank you,
right.
Gary.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for
Jen.
taking so much time to talk to us
Absolutely.
today. And y'all follow him on Instagram. Reach out to him. I'll link all of his information below on the captions. And yeah, just do it like he said.
That's right.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Gary.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye bye.